Listen up.
Welcome to the PowerShell Podcast, the podcast for PowerShell and the PowerShell community. And now, here's your host, Andrew Plaw.
Welcome to another episode of the PowerShell Podcast. I am your host, Andrew Plaw, at Andrew Plaw Tech, and I am joined with my friend, Morten Minster. Welcome to the PowerShell Podcast. We were having some talks, and I was just like, wait, hold up. Let's just go live. So how you doing, man?
I'm doing great, thanks. How about yourself?
Oh, it's been great. I mean, we spent the past hour and a half hanging out. I think you delivered a talk at PowerShell Wednesday today, right?
Yeah, I did. Talking about MS Graph, filtering, searching, advanced filtering, and so doing some batch requests as well.
Yeah, it was quite enlightening. It sounds like you've kind of gone your journey with MS Graph and you've learned quite a few things, and you sort of shared that with us. And it was amazing. So great job. And that was your first time speaking, right?
Yeah, the very first time. I'm never really sure when you're good enough at something before you can actually show off to others.
Yeah. So how did that go for you? Because I want to talk about the content you talked about because it's quite helpful. I want to talk about your preparation for the talk, but I want to hear about, and also your journey, like in PowerShell generally and where you are. But let's talk about that talk you just gave. So where were you initially? So I guess you did something, you had a use case, you did something with MS Graph, you learned a thing or two, and then you sort of decided you maybe wanted to do a talk at some point, or where were you coming from there?
Well, personally, I started off with a previous colleague who actually did a lot of automation for a lot of customers, including automating all Windows updates using the Graph API and having Azure Arc out at the customers. And that way he could just update the whole fleet of customers' virtual machines on a given schedule and then send a bill.
Nice.
That's probably the first time I got involved with a bit of MS Graph.
And then you sort of took it to the next level and you decided you wanted to talk about it, though? Where was that? Because most people just kind of solve a problem at work and they don't look to expand themselves in that way. So why were you thinking of giving talks?
Well, there's quite a few benefits from doing a talk. First off, the biggest benefit is you confirm your knowledge, and to do a talk, to talk about anything that you actually enjoy doing, you have to know something about it, and talking about it with someone else presenting it just affirms your knowledge.
I mean, you're very correct. I mean, that's sort of a wise perspective to have, though. It sounds like you're kind of connected with the community in some ways. I know you mentioned to me, went to PSConf EU, right?
Yeah, I haven't really connected that much with the community. I mean, the community I have joined, so to speak, is the PDQ after the PowerShell podcast. I'm not really active, to be honest. I'm just a lurker.
Yeah. But so you've listened to the podcast?
Yeah, all episodes.
That's so cool.
That's
awesome. I love to hear that. So you know more about me than I know about you, which is unfair.
No, I think it's great.
When did you discover it? Because, I mean, if you've listened to every single podcast episode, that kind of makes sense why you would know that giving talks is the best way to grow. Is that sort of fair? Like you kind of got those vibes from several of the episodes and guests. I think sort of
both that, but I also attended PSConf EU back in 2023, 22, somewhere around there. I'm actually not sure if I listened to the podcast back then, but I could see on the speakers that, I mean, they know their shit.
Yeah.
Which also can be a bit intimidating on when do you know if you're ready?
Yeah. So when do you know you're ready? Like, where were you with that? Because I think eventually you wanted to give a talk. You reached out to me and sort of were asking when you can get started, or?
Yeah, I reached out to you after one of the PowerShell Wednesdays, it's called, right?
Mm-hmm.
Just wondering, because I consider myself pretty advanced, and I help my colleagues when they need some help, especially with Graph. So I find myself pretty advanced, but again, that's the thing about I'm the guy at work that knows that stuff. So to be honest, I don't have a great answer. Just try it and see if you crash and burn, or if it goes great.
Yeah, I think we've heard it said on the podcast a lot of times from a lot of people in the community. We all love new first-time speakers. Any type of established group that you see out there is more than likely very encouraging of new contributors. And PowerShell Wednesday is no exception to that. And if you don't know, PowerShell Wednesday, it's a weekly meetup that we have. Lasts about 30 minutes. Hopefully it's for lunch break for some people, because I know a lot of people can't work after hours. But yeah, every single Wednesday, 2 p.m. in the PDQ Discord, we have presenters. And today it was you. I think we've been doing it for maybe 4 or 5. I remember seeing you there. So it's cool to know that you've watched a couple, now you've presented, and you've sort of given that some helpful information to others.
I hope so, at least. I hope somebody could use it. As far as I could see it from the comments, a lot of people enjoyed it and learned some stuff. And that could be the listener listening right now as well. You might learn something, you might not.
Yep.
It's up to you to decide if a given talk is interesting for you.
Was it interesting for you? What was your biggest challenge sort of in getting ready to give your first talk?
Deciding what content I wanted to share was probably my biggest hurdle or issue. Limiting yourself to 30 minutes because you can't talk about everything, even if you want to. So that's probably my biggest issue.
So you weren't super nervous?
Yeah, I'm always nervous. It's like going up to an exam for me.
Yeah. You seemed like a cool cucumber. You seem very relaxed, but I think that's a natural feeling to feel nervous, because even if we are the person at work who knows the most about PowerShell, when you expand that pool to the whole world, it's easy to feel like, oh gosh, all these people I see speaking know so much. I must not know that much compared to them. But it's just, I think we all fall into that trap. I think it's very hard to not, but it's always good to remind yourself that, we all got to start somewhere. We all know certain things that are helpful. And maybe you're really good at MS Graph, but you're not great at querying hard drive MFT tables.
Yeah, I was about to say that as well. You might be an expert at work at, for example, MS Graph, but the other guy listening has never worked with MS Graph, or is struggling with using the API, or have some other issues that you might be able to solve for them.
And in your talk today, I think it sort of spoke to the challenges that people have with using MS Graph, right? The first challenge that was sort of addressed by the community was authenticating. Everyone got stuck there, right?
Yeah.
And then there was some great content created around it, and I think people were able to get over that hurdle. And then what's the next hurdle to usability, which is sort of what you talked about today. But what is that next hurdle to really taking advantage of it?
Well, from my perspective is, you can easily request all users in your whole tenant, but if you have 20, 50,000 users, it's going to take a while. And you're going to run into next page issue, which you also have to handle, and throttling because you're requesting too much. So the thing I talked about today was using some filters to limit your query, so to speak, to getting actually what you want and not everything, to then handle it in PowerShell afterwards.
And those are some advanced techniques. I think you even covered batching, where you sort of batch a bunch of requests together, which I haven't seen before.
I hadn't seen it before looking in the developer tools. When doing something in Graph, then they always batch the request. And I tried to replicate it. I couldn't find any articles or a blog post about it, so I don't think it's that common. And it might be because people can't see the use case or don't have a use case for it. Or the people doing the blog post don't have a use case for it, at least. So I think that's the biggest issue, maybe.
Yeah. What do you have any current challenges with MS Graph, or have you've solved it for your use case? You're happy to use everything you've used, and you don't really need to go outside those.
Well, I'm a guy who loves to tinker, so if there is a property I need to search for specifically, then it might not work the first time. I might need to tinker a bit with the graph call or the body or the parameters that I actually sent with my query before I actually get to where I want it to be. That can be a challenge, but most of the time I figure it out or try another method which makes it possible. Like I also showed in the PowerShell Wednesdays, if you need to exclude users that are in a specific administrative unit, if you need to look in an administrative units and get the users, then you need quite high API permissions on MS Graph. Instead, you can get user read all, and then you can expand the property member off, and then just check if the user is a member of the administrative unit that you actually want to exclude or include for that matter.
There's some great stuff there. And you know what? Morten, PowerShell Wednesday came and went. Would you be open to giving this talk again if there's some other user group out there that would like to see?
Yeah, I'm open to it. I haven't had, I'm actually not sure where you can find out who needs speakers and when they need speakers. I don't see any common platform for that, unfortunately. So
yeah, I don't either.
That might be something I'm struggling a bit with.
Yeah, I wish I knew the answer to that, to be honest. I don't know these days.
Yeah.
I think in the PowerShell Discord, aka.ms/PS Discord, that's the official sort of PowerShell wider community Discord. I think there is a ask for speakers kind of channel or some speakers channel.
Yeah, I have tried to look in the, it's called Speaking Opportunity at some point, but I didn't find anything. I mean, sure, there are some for the PowerShell conference when that comes up. I can actually see HC Ryder actually came up with one recently. Recently.
Christian
it was
Ritter.
back in July.
Yeah. I love him. Yeah.
It was back in July, so
cool.
It's a while ago.
Well, if you post on LinkedIn, I'm happy to retweet it or repost it, and I'll make sure that somebody hits you up. If not, I definitely will.
Yeah, might do it tomorrow. See if anybody reaches out.
Yeah. So this is kind of a cool day, at least for me watching you and watching anyone's growth, right? It's kind of a cool little point, and I'm curious to see what's going to happen from here. Do you have any goals to do more speaking, more blogging, more public stuff, or?
Well, I actually started a blog like 2 weeks ago or something, using GitHub pages. I actually forgot to share it in the PowerShell Wednesday.
Round of applause, Morten. Round of applause. You're doing all the right things. Okay.
I'm trying at least. But yeah, it only has 2 posts currently, and I haven't had time to make more posts yet.
And what was the URL of that?
Let me just find it just to make sure.
Take your time.
It's Münster 9361.github.io. So MYNSTER 9361.github.io. I can also just link it in the chat as well.
Yeah, it'll be in the show notes as well. That is awesome. So you're doing all the things, man, putting yourself in a great spot. Do you have any long-term goals that you're trying to shoot for? Or are you just trying to do all the right things to take advantage of the learning you're already doing at work?
Well, to be honest, when I started coming into IT, I thought the Microsoft MVPs were cool. Thought I was going to be the next MVP, but to be honest, I haven't had the time to do it at all. But yeah, would be great.
Yeah. And the thing is, if you're focused on this type of stuff, no matter how it ends up, it's always a good thing, right? At the very least, future employers are a lot more confident and trusting without even having to meet you. Anytime you're able to have like that sort of public knowledge sharing thing going on. So, well, that's awesome. I love to see that. I love it because that's what I'm trying to show people through the podcast is we talk to all these different people who some people consider really successful or they're heroes and things like that, and show them how you get there. And if you do those right things, you'd be surprised what happens. And I think we've shown a few people through where we've seen them at the beginning of their career, we interview them, and then they do all the right things like a Clayton Tiger. And then boom, they get their MVP and some great things happen. Christian Ritter, another one.
Yeah, that's true.
Oh, that's exciting. All right. All right. Cool.
Might as well shoot for the stars, right?
You might as well. Where are you going to land? Who knows?
That's right.
Well, how are you feeling now that it was finished? Did you feel like it was successful, or were you sort of maybe harping on, oh, I should have said this, I shouldn't have said that?
I mean, when one of my requests went wrong and I can see the time starting to run out and I still have more to cover, then I'm a bit pressured, but yeah, I ended up just skipping that one. We could have had some troubleshooting on it as well. That could have been great as well, but I thought the batching was more important in the moment.
All right. Give me some advice. I have not really used the REST API confidently before. Maybe I've copied a couple commands, but I didn't really learn exactly what the authentication was doing or how it worked. But I need to use MS Graph API for some work stuff. Well, I don't have to, but I kind of should if I want to automate things. So I don't understand REST APIs, and I need to use MS Graph. Should I just jump to MS Graph, or should I sort of take things slow and then move to MS Graph?
To be honest, MS Graph is, in my opinion, probably one of the best APIs to start out with if you're starting on working with APIs, because it's well structured, it's well documented, and you won't hit any hurdles with the Graph module that might be missing some endpoints or might not exactly have what you're looking for. And also you can, Azure also has a REST API, works kind of like MS Graph. The documentation isn't that great for that one, but if you've messed around with MS Graph, then it's pretty easy to get into that as well. And the Azure REST API, I believe it's the API behind the AZ modules. So, yeah.
Oh yeah, AZ. AZ.
AZ, yeah.
Just I know some people may not know it, so I know it now.
Yeah.
I got a lot of friends from Europe, so yeah, that is great stuff. But I have a question. All right, what advice would you give to someone else who's consider giving their first talk? Maybe they were in sort of the same spot you were. Is it just find a great topic you're passionate about and go for it?
I mean, for me personally, I would only jump into it with a topic I know a lot about, or at least a topic I'm confident in. If I have helped some of my colleagues learning about this specific topic, then if you can teach it to a colleague, then you can speak in front of a crowd as well.
Yeah.
In my personal opinion, you just have to find the topics yourself to speak about.
And I think what I suggest also is finding someone to run ideas off of. You know, hey, I think it sounds like a good idea, but you know, I'm working in a vacuum here. Run it by somebody, and if you don't have a somebody, feel free to reach out to me. Same way I responded to Morten's questions. Happy to respond to yours. Happy to connect you with other people that are maybe more of an expert in that whatever subtopic you might have questions about. But that can be another good way to like make sure, like, hey, is this actually something people want to hear about? The answer is almost certainly yes, but it can sort of help quiet that voice that's talking a little bit too much inside of us, making us doubt things.
Yeah, I mean, last week we had a session on. I don't remember who hosted it, unfortunately, but a game being made in PowerShell.
Yes.
I had absolutely no use case for it, but I found it a bit fun anyways. So
Greg Martin.
It doesn't.
Yep.
You don't necessarily have to teach someone else something new or something common. You might just have an awesome project that you would like to share.
Yeah. I mean, ultimately, we're all interested in PowerShell. And if you're trying to get better at PowerShell, it's a language. You have to expose yourself to it. Seeing people talk about hobby projects that they find interesting, that you might also find interesting, is a great way to keep your brain thinking of PowerShell, sort of working on those complexities that might be challenging to you, especially if you're more on the beginner side of things. Yeah. I think also if you have a problem that you've solved with PowerShell, could be big, could be small, I think you're ready to share that with others. Now, whether that could make a 45-minute talk, or if maybe that's more of a 5 to 10 minute sort of lightning demo type thing, I think it's a good habit to get in the process of sharing what you've learned sooner, so you can get that external feedback. You can put yourself out there so people like Morten out there in the world can see someone trying stuff and they can offer some guidance, because maybe they've been there and done that. But
that's also something I wanted to say as well. You don't necessarily have to be 100% there. You can be 50% and then ask for feedback or show it off and get a bit of feedback, maybe a different perspective, some new ideas for your project or script for that matter.
wise, Morten. When did you discover REST APIs?
Probably going to be the same answer as the introduction to PowerShell or getting started with PowerShell. My colleague who automated the Windows patching, probably the first occurrence with APIs or APIs with PowerShell at least. At a previous firm, we used Topdesk, and one of my managers asked if I knew APIs.
You use Topdesk? Do you know about
Not
me and
anymore.
Topdesk?
Nope.
What? Dude, I wrote the module for Topdesk using their REST API. That was my first time with a real REST API, and I learned a ton from it. I wrote and there's a lot of endpoints, but I wrote every single one in PowerShell for Topdesk. Yeah, I have a bunch of people who've reached out to me, not from the United States. A lot of people in Europe who apparently Topdesk is really popular over there. But
yeah,
that's so funny.
I mean, we used it at a previous company, and the company I was at before that, I think we were through 4 or 5 incident systems.
Yeah.
Before I left.
That is so funny. Yeah, I wrote the PowerShell module for it, and they refer to it in their help desk and stuff, their docs and whatnot. So they sent me coffee. I thought I was so cool. I didn't get paid anything, but I did get 3 bags of coffee and a coffee mug. So that was cool.
I mean, who doesn't want merch?
Oh man, that's so funny. Gosh. Small world. That made my day. I mean, so much of what I've heard from you today has honestly made my day, because it's just great all the way around. It's great for you, which I'm very happy for you individually, but it's also great for the community. Anytime we have a new speaker, a new person getting out there and doing this stuff, it gets us fired up. It makes us feel like, wow, this PowerShell community is kind of alive. So I appreciate you for doing that.
Yeah, of course. I mean, the biggest hurdle is getting started. No doubt about it. Taking the courage to actually show off, so to speak. I know, at least for a lot of Danes, that it's not in the Danish nature to go forward and show who you are. It's more about you're not better than anyone else. Yeah.
Yep. Well, if you could go back and give your beginner self one piece of PowerShell advice, what would it be?
Take one of the issues that you absolutely hate and try and automate it. You don't have to succeed. You just have to get started.
That's great advice. And I'd say give it a solid effort. And if you get stuck, maybe you have a coworker who knows PowerShell. Maybe not. Yeah. That's why you're listening to this. Reach out to the community. Get some conversations started. You'd be surprised how much faster you can solve problems if you get that a little bit extra help the first couple times.
100% agreed. I mean, for me, I didn't really reach out much. I had a couple of colleagues that used PowerShell, but I didn't necessarily wanted to bother them too much. If I was really struggling, then I would reach out, but otherwise I wouldn't. So I ended up spending a free time of about 8 months to actually learn and get good at PowerShell. So working 8 hours and then spending 6 hours on PowerShell when I got home most days.
Yeah. It
could be easier if I reached out.
It could be. I mean, I think a certain amount of that type of struggling, I mean, maybe not to that extent, but a lot of people who get to a certain competency have to put in a certain amount of hours. And you got to kind of really push through some hurdles, which takes a lot of brain power. But once you can sort of get through those, there's a lot of rewards on the other side. But I tend to have the same experience where I don't know if 20 minutes a day would have taught me PowerShell. It needs to be I'm sort of living it. I'm listening to the PowerShell podcast. I'm attending user groups and PowerShell Wednesdays. I'm sort of keeping my head in it, because for me, a lot of the concepts were brand new. My brain didn't have the structure for objects. There was nothing in my brain for that concept to latch onto. It took time to sort of forge that. But gosh, it's been such a fun experience, and it's so cool to see that in others as well. Is when you have that experience of seeing how PowerShell can change things, and you go through some struggles, and like, okay, you push past it, you get a couple successes, you use it at work for something. Now you're at the point where you're sharing that knowledge with others, helping them solve problems. Now, not only is your force being multiplied like within your organization, but now you're helping out people in different countries. It's so cool. All starting from just this desire to solve problems. Dang, man.
I agree. And I mean, if we're going to talk about impact, for example, at work, I think the biggest impact, at least for me, is you suddenly get a lot more opportunities to work other places, get other roles, maybe doing something else than picking up the phone and telling people to restart their PC, like in the office. And you also get quite a huge pay bump as well.
Definitely. That is a huge argument for it as well. And that's when I like to always remind people, if you're doing things directionally correct, it'll benefit you in a financial way. It'll benefit those around you at work. It'll lead to less stress, all these great things. But you got to kind of put in the work. And also you have to vouch for yourself at work. And that can be challenging, a different challenge for some people. But that's why having some mentor or some person you're talking to who maybe is where you want to be can really help make sure that you're approaching things in a sensible way.
I agree.
But it's 100%. Really cool. Like I had that experience where I was sort of in a role where I had a lot of responsibilities that weren't helping me grow my skill set. And through solving issues and getting wins with PowerShell, you can pave this path to just keep adding value with PowerShell and different automation projects once you can think in that sort of mindset.
Yeah, the mindset is definitely a thing. If you can't think, maybe if we did it this way and maybe then that and this, and then put the whole script together and see how it works.
What's been the biggest aha moment on your PowerShell journey?
For me, it's not even in PowerShell. It's actually the developer tools in, for example, Chrome for when working
F12,
with
right?
APIs. Yeah, F12. And then go to the network pane, seeing the API calls that are called from, for example, MS Graph, especially. That's probably the biggest help anyone can get in learning the API for Graph.
Yeah. That is. Did you want to show that real quick?
Can I share screen?
Yeah, click present at the bottom.
All right.
If you'd like to see this, everybody, check out the YouTube stream. But I will explain what he's going to show here. And it is a good thing that's worth reminding, because I've known about developer tools, okay. But until I actually went through the process of using it, just like PowerShell, that wasn't a tool that was accessible to me. But it's a massively powerful tool set, right? Like there's a lot of developers who put a lot of hours into making this refined tool set that can be leveraged to your advantage for sure.
All right. Let's see if this works. Seems like it. If we were to, for example,
zoom in a bunch.
Tool. Yeah, just give me a moment. Is that better?
Yeah.
If we just wanted to get all users. And I'm actually not sure if it is sharing the other tab as well. I can click this button. Yeah.
Okay, so we're looking straight up at the developer tools now.
Yeah, straight up at the developer tools. We only went into users, and we can see all of this freaking data in the developer tools. The ones you want to look for when working with MS Graph is the batch request, and then you want to look at the payload, and then you can see the endpoints that you're hitting. In this part, it was looking at subscriptions and role management, directory estimate.
Okay, so you can look at the URL and see sort of what they're looking at.
Yeah, the things that are being shown to you on the page that you're on, you can actually see which URLs are being hit in the backend. And for this request here, we just went to all users. We can see that they are posting a batch request and hitting each endpoint for each user in this instance. And for this one, they are actually just getting the photos for that user, because all users in the Azure Active Directory has a photo. It doesn't matter if it's your photo or if it's the, for example, for me, it would be as shown in the previous window. So
Sweet.
all users' photos is being gathered through batching.
That's really helpful. And just a reminder, so this is Developer Tools F12 Network tab. You showed it in Google Chrome. Similar features exist in every modern browser.
Yeah, I believe so.
Yep. Awesome. Well, Morten, what's your final message for the people out there?
If you're struggling with something, reach out to a colleague, reach out to a friend, reach out to Andrew, or post on Reddit. I mean, people are happy to help in most cases, as long as you're showing what you're actually struggling with and showing that what you have tried. Everyone seems to be happy to help.
It is a much smaller community than you think, and the community is always so appreciative to have people share feedback, ask for help, all that kind of thing. I mean, so you can't say it enough. Get out there, get engaged, go to a local user group, do something, write a blog, be like Morten. All right, that's my goal for 2025. Be like Morten. And Morten, we want to stay tuned with you. We want to see what you're up to and what you're doing this year, because you're doing some things, man. I know you have another child on the way, so congrats on that. But where can we keep track of you, man?
Well, currently I'm only on Discord, and I'm on LinkedIn as well. Other than that, I have the blog post I'm starting up. There aren't much of anything currently. There are 3 posts about authentication, and that's it. But stay tuned.
Awesome. And I will. I certainly will. Now, thank you so much for attending PowerShell Wednesdays. And those are every single Wednesday. And the PDQ Discord, discord.gg/PDQ. Check out the PowerShell scripting channel. I'll be honest, man, this year has been so much fun. Doing the weekly meetups really feels like we're building a community and getting more people out there. I don't know. For me, it's been exciting, especially because I get a little taste of something new in PowerShell every single week with the demos. So appreciate you for helping us out there.
Yeah, of course. Does your colleague attend as well? Just curious.
Some colleagues.
If there's a topic that is actually interesting for you guys.
Sometimes. Yeah, it's a newer thing, so I haven't broadcasted it internally a whole bunch. But yeah, there have been some employees who are in sort of our internal PowerShell group, or we call it a guild, who come on by.
Yeah, cool.
Yeah, maybe I'll get one of them to present.
Yeah, do it.
Awesome. Well, thank you, everybody out there. Give us a like, a comment, a subscription if you enjoyed what you heard here today. Help get it to more people. Leave us a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts or your podcast platform of choice. We are global. Wow, that's impactful. PowerShell is global. Billions of sessions. It's being used everywhere for automations around the world. Thank you, everybody. Take care. I'm Andrew Pla at Andrew Pla Tech. That's Morten Minster. Thank you so much for joining me. Thank you so much out there for listening. Morten?
Of course. Have a good one.
Have a great one.
Yeah, exactly.
We'll see you soon enough, man. Take care, everybody.
Sounds good. Sounds great.
Thanks for listening to the PowerShell Podcast. The PowerShell Podcast is a PDQ production, making device management simple, secure, and pretty damn quick.